take place with Iran in the near future. I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks. That's a quote directly from the president for all of you.
Allowing time for a diplomatic solution, U.S. President Donald Trump says he's giving himself 2 weeks to decide if the U.S. will attack Iran. Meanwhile, 8 days into the conflict, Israel and Iran continue to exchange fire as diplomatic talks between European officials and Iran take place in Geneva. Sources telling NDTV there is a possibility of the 2 black boxes in the Air India crash being sent overseas for examination. Possible locations: the United States, the UK, or Singapore. Sources say one of the black boxes is visibly more damaged, and if not handled properly, it risks compromising the integrity of crucial data. Yet another breather for TikTok. U.S. President Trump has given the short video app the further 90-day extension. TikTok's Chinese parent, ByteDance, needs to decide if it will sell itself to a U.S. buyer or face a ban. Trump has given TikTok a deadline reprieve 3 times since January this year. Student visa interviews are back, but there's a condition: social media accounts cannot be private and must be set to public. Last month, the Trump administration stopped student visa appointments. Visa officers have been told to flag anti-Semitic and U.S. national security risks, a phrase that's been used for pro-Palestinian campus protesters in the past.
Well, I think there are 2 separate recessions that we should be prepared for.
In an exclusive interview, Nobel winner Daron Acemoglu says expect a U.S. recession next year, followed by another after Trump's term ends in 2028. Iran and Israel continue with their aerial attacks with no signs of de-escalation. U.S. President Donald Trump is allowing 2 weeks for diplomacy before deciding whether to launch a U.S. strike on Iran. In Geneva, meanwhile, Europe is putting forward an offer, a comprehensive offer, it calls, to Iran to end hostilities. That deal, according to French President Emmanuel Macron, involves moving towards zero uranium enrichment. Meanwhile, not all is well in MAGA land, with the Iran conflict threatening to split Trump's voter base.
I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do.
Will he? Won't he? U.S. President Donald Trump is keeping the world on edge as tensions escalate in the Middle East, and it seems to have hit too close to home. As a deepening divide is shaking the core of Trump's once unified voter base, the Make America Great Again movement. The trigger, the brewing possibility of the U.S. joining Israel's strikes against Iran's nuclear program, and the president's ambiguity over the matter. The MAGA rift erupted in public view this week, with U.S. Senator Ted Cruz clashed with controversial media personality Tucker Carlson in a fierce interview over U.S. military action in the Middle East, where the latter confronted the senator over his lack of knowledge of Iran, including its population figures. Leading figures of the Trump's MAGA fan club, including Carlson, former advisor Steve Bannon, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, are hitting out against the president, warning that an U.S. intervention in the Middle East could destroy Trump's presidency, signaling betrayal of past promises to avoid American involvement in long-running foreign wars. But Trump's adamant.
Very simple. If they think that it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon, then they should oppose me, but nobody thinks it's okay. People that I don't want to fight either. I'm not looking to fight. But if it's a choice between fighting and them having a nuclear weapon, you have to do what you have to do.
Trouble is brewing in Trump's inner circle. Reports suggest that President Trump has sidelined his star power-led national security team, including National Intelligence Chief Tulsi Gabbard and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, for a small group of experienced aides, including J.D. Vance, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, among others. Gabbard has already been iced out over her position on Iran's nuclear program.
You've always said that you don't believe Iran should be able to have a nuclear weapon, but how close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having it.
Ghosts of Washington's failed interventions in Iraq and Libya haunt the Trump administration. But in 2003, George W. Bush justified his invasion of Iraq, citing intelligence findings. 22 years later, Trump's possible military intervention is not backed by any intel suggesting the Iranians are close to a nuclear bomb. Next 2 weeks will determine the future of Middle East and Trump administration as well. Disha Bakhchi's report for NDTV World.
Now, these are some satellite images that we're showing you of the strike by Israel on Iran. Those hostilities and attacks continue at this point in time after President Trump, though, allowing for some kind of breather room that allows for a 2-week decision for himself to decide if the U.S. will actually join in those strikes with Israel. And in latest news coming in right now, President Emmanuel Macron of France and his European countries are saying that they're prepared to put forward a comprehensive negotiation plan to put an end to hostilities in Iran. Now, foreign ministers from the UK, France, and Germany and the EU all meeting with Iran's foreign minister in Geneva. This is happening in a few hours from now, Friday afternoon, and we'll have more on that as we get those details. Let's get you more on this story now. We are joined by Nicholas Grossman at the University of Illinois. He is also author of a book called Drones and Terrorism. Nicholas, President Trump has helped somewhat diffuse immediate tensions with this 2-week window, but Iran says there will be no talks with the US unless Israel stops bombing Israel, dismissing that, saying that Iran is misleading the world, it's just a waste of time. How do you think things are going to play out?
Well, the in 2 weeks is something that Trump has said for many years when he doesn't seem to really want to give an answer, perhaps know an answer, and is trying to string things along. So an example from the United States is all the way back in 2016 when he first ran for president. He said he would have this great healthcare plan that everybody would love, and he would release the details in 2 weeks. And he never did. Anytime he was asked about it, he said, oh, I'll just give you the details in 2 weeks. And it has been literally 10 years at this point since he first brought that up. So it is possible that this indicates that he doesn't really know what to do or doesn't necessarily want to get involved with military action and would like it to go away. But the problem is this is not something that's going to go away. So if anybody thought that the United States was about to bomb Iran tomorrow, then and were worried about that, then they should feel relieved, because it looks pretty clearly like the United States is not about to do that right away. But as long as the fighting continues, there's still going to be this open question about Iran's nuclear program, its missile program, Israel's actions towards Iran, their relations with each other, not to mention all the larger Middle East issues. And so in 2 weeks, there's still going to be a lot of problems that will come up again for the U.S. to possibly get involved or not.
All right, Nicholas, at the heart of the attack on Iran are claims that Iran is extremely close to building nuclear weapons. People are likening the motive to what happened to Saddam Hussein in Iraq, where, of course, eventually no weapons of mass destruction were found. A sense of déjà vu for you. How do you read this?
Well, there are some important differences and some similarities. So I'd say the biggest difference is that Iraq did not have a nuclear program, and at least not an active one at the time, whereas Iran openly has an active nuclear program, things like enriching uranium domestically. And they have been multiple times criticized by the International Atomic Energy Agency via the UN for violating the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. So unlike with Iraq, there really is something there. That said, the Israeli government of Benjamin Netanyahu, and Netanyahu specifically, has claimed that Iran is on the verge of having a bomb And they've, for at this point, really years that they have made that claim. In fact, Netanyahu, you can see even going back to the 20th century, has made claims along those lines. And other intelligence agencies, including in the United States, have not drawn a similar conclusion. So the question of Iran's nuclear program is real, but the possibility that they were just on the verge of having a bomb is most likely not accurate. And if you parse those statements, what you would see is that the real accusation they were making was that Iran was close to having enough enriched uranium that if it then decided to make a bomb, it would have the fuel for it, but not that they were, say, about to have a nuclear test within days.
Okay, Nicholas, let's talk about regime change. Trump earlier in the week said of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, we are going to take him out, at least for now, basically saying that we won't kill him yet for now. Extremely disturbing remarks there. But if this were to happen, there are really no guarantees that the next supreme leader, right, will be different in any way.
Not at all. So first, there's the possibility if the Iranian government holds together but loses its leadership, and so we have a similar Islamic Republic system but with new leaders, they likely will not have different opinions. And in fact, after having just been attacked by Israel, they will probably be more interested in getting a nuclear weapon because they can see other examples such as North Korea, which has nuclear weapons, and the United States and its allies negotiate with North Korea, whereas Iraq did not have nuclear weapons, and the United States and allies attacked. And so Iran has learned from this, or from the Libya example also, where Gaddafi did not have nuclear weapons, and he got overthrown in part with attacks from Western powers. So they will likely go for it even more. On the other hand, if the regime collapses, as it seems like the Israeli government hopes, then there is no guarantee that there will be something better, certainly not something that's Israel-friendly or America-friendly that rises in its place, or there's a live possibility that if the government collapses, nothing rises in its place, and it is a situation of chaotic power vacuums for a while, and it took the United States and allies years to stabilize Iraq, with occupying it with well over 100,000 troops. And Iran has about twice the population of Iraq and about 3 times the area. So any attempt to try to occupy and pacify an Iranian country that is in chaos is likely to be extremely difficult.
And we'll be closely watching, and so will you. Thank you very much indeed, Nicholas Grossman there from the University of Illinois. In other news now, this week saw Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaking to US President Trump. Modi reiterated that Operation Sindoor was paused following a request from Pakistan and not due to mediation or an offer of trade concessions by the US. NDTV Profits, Rishabh Bhatnagar has more on what kind of impact all of this might have on the looming India-US trade deal.
Right, with regards to this constant back and forth that is happening between US and India as to who brokered this ceasefire between India and Pakistan last month, an aspect that is ignored is the fact that trade talks are on between India and the US. And what we're picking up is that trade talks will continue parallelly. There is a diplomatic relation that India and the US share that perhaps Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Donald Trump adhere to. But what we're seeing is that an active bilateral trade agreement is being negotiated with India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal helming it. And we are supposed to, we're constantly still in agreement with the fact that a first tranche or an early harvest of the India-US bilateral trade agreement is on track for July 9th. What we're also given to understand is that because there is the US sort of July 4th, their Independence Day, or the 4th of July, it is that week where we expect a lot of these trade agreements that the US is expected to announce. And that is also what India is targeting for, given that July 9th is the date where the 3-month tariff pause period ends. And so that is something that is being looked forward to. A trade deal is very much in the offing for India and the US, at least a first tranche. And then we'll have another tranche come up in the fall of 2025, that is by October this year. And then there'll be a third sort of a tranche that will be decided on a later date. So that is what we have currently on the India, US, Pakistan sort of trilateral agreement and the trilateral relationship that these three countries share.
In other news now, from Trump's trade policy to coming after the independence of the U.S. central bank, our next guest is alarmed. Daron Acemoglu won the 2024 Nobel Prize in Economics in an exclusive interview with NDTV. Acemoglu says that the world needs to brace for two recessions. Here's our exclusive interview. Acemoglu, for joining us here on Washington Watch. Our first question here to you, really. Mr. Acemoglu, whatever happens in the United States has repercussions on the rest of the world. What do you see happening with the U.S. economy in the long term and short term?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. I don't think we can know that yet, but I think there are two issues to really appreciate, especially from the point of view of India and other emerging economies. First of all, what happens in the United States has ramifications around the world, exactly like you said, but that includes domestic policy as well. A lot of the world is focusing on tariff policy because that's immediately relevant. But Trump's bigger agenda is to create an executive presidency with him at the top with few constraints and a lot of power concentrated in his hands. If that succeeds, that's a fundamental transformation of US institutions with a even huger transformation of US economy following. But once you also make this observation, you also see that the form of tariffs has specific significance. There is no economic theory, absolutely none, that would justify the form of tariffs that President Trump is imposing. But it makes sense if your point is to centralize power in your hands. Now he can make deals with India, with Bangladesh, with China, with the European Union. More importantly, he now has a big weapon in his negotiations against US companies. Apple now has to be much more subservient to Donald Trump because he can put tariffs on Apple's supply chain. So it's a power play more than anything else.
Right, Professor Acemoglu, given everything you've told us, what are the odds of a US recession?
Well, I think there are two separate recessions that we should be prepared for. One, imagine what would have happened if the US did not go into this tariff game. Trump would have again weakened US institutions, and that would have had an impact on the tech sector, on other innovations, on other businesses. And I think we could expect a instability perhaps 4 or 5 years times, so some of it after Trump actually. But with the tariffs, he's actually bringing those much earlier, and he's creating a new source of instability which will intersect with those institutional induced recessions. So we could see a recession, I think, next year if this tariff game continues economy. And if, as it seems likely, at some point a Trump induced recession arrives, it will not be an American recession, it will be a global recession.
Okay, Professor Acemoglu, your research on why countries succeed or fail won you the Nobel Prize. In your book, Why Nations Fail, which you co-authored, you cited how democratic institutions are critical to a nation's success. You cited the US as a great example, but that was in your book over a decade ago. What do you make about the United States as a nation today?
Well, I think we wrote that book 15 years ago, and even there we did discuss that the path of US success has been much more uncertain. US institutions showed flexibility, but they had many weaknesses. That's a point that we actually emphasize further in a book that we wrote about 7 years ago, The Narrow Corridor. But even since the 6-year landmark that has happened over the now that we're seeing, huge changes have happened in US institutions. Their weaknesses have been pried open. both during the Biden presidency, but especially after Donald Trump has come to power. And for once, I think there is a real danger that the US republic, US democracy could collapse. Now, if we go back to Why Nations Fail, it's ironic that some of the lines that we wrote in that book with advice to emerging economies, such as India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, those in Latin America, now apply to the United States. The danger is really undermining inclusive institutions and failing to build the institutions for a new age that we require. And for the US, the problem is that the effects are going to be slow because people still have trust in US institutions. They are normalizing these changes. But once it comes, it's going to have really deep consequences.
Okay, let's zoom into one of those institutions, the independence of the US Central Bank. Trump is unhappy with the Fed chair. Trump, of course, remains unhappy about high interest rates. What would you say to those who agree with Trump that the Fed should, in fact, cut rates to prevent a fallout from those tariffs?
Well, I think it is true that there is going to be a lot of turbulence. And when that comes, it may well be that central banks around the world may need to stimulate the economy. And also the independence of the central bank, which is such an important bulwark of stability in the United States, requires that experts in the central bank make that decision, not politicians. Politicians calling for lower interest rates is something we had left behind. But of course, Trump is bringing the worst in the political system. And the argument that I have created this mess and this mess should be accommodated by lower interest rates is really very hypocritical.
Okay, Professor Acemoglu, before we let you go, this has been a question on the minds of many Indians. When you won the Nobel Prize a few months ago, you shared the news by posting an article from Pune News, which is not a mainstream news outlet from India. Why did you pick Pune News for your choice?
I don't remember. It must have been, I don't use Twitter very regularly. I must have seen it and something must have appealed and I must have retweeted it, but I don't actually remember. I'm sorry. I like, some of the comments and the things I see from Indian press. It's like rich, diverse country with an amazing history. So I'm sure I was taken by some aspect of it.
That exclusive interview with Daron Acemoglu, more can be found on our YouTube channel. Time now for some other news in brief. This week saw Democrat Brad Lander, who is running for New York City mayor, handcuffed as he was trying to escort a migrant whom immigration agents were seeking to arrest. A few days prior, Democratic Senator Alex Padilla was wrestled out of a room and then handcuffed after he tried to question U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem at a news conference. Names of Democratic Indian American Congressman Sri Thanedar and Raja Krishnamurthy were on a hit list recovered from a suspect in a recent shooting in Minnesota. A 57-year-old man has been arrested and charged for killing both Melissa Hortman, the top Democrat in the Minnesota House, and her husband. Time for Diaspora Connect now, where we bring you stories of overseas Indians. Today, we met a former IT worker who gave up her high-paying job to become a farmer, not just any farmer, but one that grows Indian vegetables like Karela and Desi Palak.
My name is Swati Gadam. I am a full-time farmer, and prior to that I was in technology for 15 years. Vegetables, we specialize in Indian vegetables. Bitter melon like Karela, bottle gourds, fenugreek, methi, Malabar spinach. This is sorrel, katta palak, also called chukakura. Here we have some lamb squatters, also known as batua, and famous in North and South India. Here is some Indian cilantro. Smells really good. and has like amazing flavors. I chose to grow Indian vegetables because I'm a vegetarian, and also there is a gap in the farmers market for the Indian vegetables.
That's it for Washington Watch. The news continues here on NDTV. For the latest updates and breaking news, subscribe to NDTV's YouTube channel. I'm Allister D'Souza.
How long's it been then? We met about 8 years back. What? Yeah, serious relationship.
He has this way of looking into my eyes.
Knows how to treat me. Gentle, considerate.
Did I tell you he owns his own business?
I think he's going to pop the question.
Better or worse?
Better.
Our opticians and audiologists own their stores, so your care is their business, which can make them rather popular.
Apparently, he's seeing half the town.
Book an appointment today.
Life is complicated. Hastings Direct Car Insurance is simple. You've got a lot going on. A lot. Trying to save could really grind your gears. So come on, let's get a great deal off the ground! Nice driving. Hastings Direct is simple. Great cover, great price, and a great app makes us one of the UK's top choices when comparing car insurance online. Hastings Direct. Simplicity is the best policy.
Magic family moments deserve the perfect setting. A stylish awning from House is the ideal addition to your outdoor space. Available in a range of colours and finishes, and with the option of integrated lighting and heating, you can enjoy your outdoor space for even longer. Now that is magic. House awnings, made for life.
Get that Lucky Cow feeling with luckycowbingo.com/bingo, the site that's bursting with beautiful bingo games. That's luckycowbingo.com/bingo.
Ngayon wajar hulas, wasir jar, ajal hay. Wihan musatay, aku dah cuma mutan, aku dah hay.
Arai lakato kaja, alawa menaku, petenam jene. Agoro tu galon kama gitu sain ya par kasat. Bayar nanti niat mobil, ini tamaman.
Fatoon, Leolida, and Monica are caught in the biggest global hunger crisis of the 21st century. Millions of children all over the world are going hungry because of conflict, displacement, and extreme weather. We urgently need your help to fight acute hunger and malnutrition. Please search Save the Children or visit savethechildren.org.uk to give £5 a month. Your £5 a month can help us give hungry families life-saving food and provide malnourished children the treatment they need to recover. No child should go hungry, so please donate today. Search Save the Children or visit savethechildren.org.uk to give £5 a month. Thank you.
Some people think life slows down in your 50s, but I'm just getting started. And I don't want my lot to have to worry about funeral costs. Let them spend their money on nicer things. So I decided to learn more about over 50s life insurance from Cover Today. They're the only over 50s life insurer with no waiting period. Unlike other insurers who could make you wait up to 2 years, with Cover Today, you're fully covered from day one. And you're covered for the whole of your life. Unlike other things in life, the price never goes up. Go online or talk to their friendly UK team in just one phone call. Cover Today are the only over 50s life insurer with no waiting period and no annoying trips to the doctors either.
Plus, you get your choice of a £125 gift card.
Now I'm with Cover Today, I can get on with something much more interesting.
To get a free life insurance quote, call our friendly UK team on 0800 470 4474 or visit covertoday.co.uk.
As a red flag here, it's not pointing in that direction. It's pointing more towards some kind of catastrophic technical failure, the causes of which are a whole other conversation.
Patrick Smith of AskThePilot.com. Thank you very much for speaking to us here on NDTV. This is an important story for us, and we are committed to seeing it till the end. We don't know how long it's going to take for that investigation to emerge with a preliminary and then a final report, but people are waiting for answers. The families of those who are lost and a country at large is waiting for what happened to Flight AI 171. We will, I promise you, continue to report it here on NDTV. Well, thanks very much for watching India Matters tonight. It's a wrap, and it's over now to Maria, who's taking you forward on the next big global story, what's happening between Iran and Israel.
That's right, but I must compliment you for being relentless in tracking the entire investigation, Shiv. Hello, everyone. We are shifting focus now to left, right, and center. I'm Maria Shakil. Tonight, we turn to a conflict that could possibly redraw the map of the Middle East and test global diplomacy like never before. And as tensions between Israel and Iran reach a boiling point, Donald Trump has set an ominous 2-week deadline, while the Biden administration, remember, walked a tightrope of silence and strategy. In this, the brink of war or the last gasp of deterrence? And where does the world stand as proxies gather, rhetoric sharpens, and red lines blur? The war between Israel and Iran, remember, has entered its 7th day, marked by intense military exchanges and significant loss of life. U.S. President Donald Trump will decide whether or not the U.S. gets directly involved in the Iran-Israel conflict within the next 2 weeks. That's what the White House has said. The news, remember, comes 24 hours after Trump said that he has not made up his mind on joining this conflict. What all has happened in the last 24 hours? Let's do a quick recap. There were reports that had suggested that Trump had approved plans to attack Iran, but had not made a final decision on whether to go ahead. Now the US president has said that he will take a call in 2 weeks' time. On ground in Israel, an Iranian ballistic missile directly struck Soroka Medical Center in southern Israel, causing extensive damage to a building used for surgeries. The hospital serving over 1 million people. Iran, though, has denied having any role. Now, to a very crucial statement which has been made by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has said that Iran would pay a heavy price for the hospital strike. Israel's defense minister has gone further. Mr. Katz has said that Khamenei openly declares that he wants Israel destroyed. He personally gives the order to fire on hospitals, and he says such a man can no longer be allowed to exist. So the pitch, if you see it, ladies and gentlemen, it's only going up. It's only going up with every passing hour. So what does that 2-week deadline mean? The White House, remember, has announced that Donald Trump would determine within the next 2 weeks whether to launch a military strike on Iran. For US President Donald Trump, the phrase 2 weeks has almost emerged as a fixture in his speeches and policy making. But because he has set this deadline, everybody is waiting and watching out for as to what will be his next move. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Oman, Qatar are engaged in frantic efforts at diplomacy to end the conflict between Israel and Iran and ensure peace and stability in this wider region. Because there will be a spillover. A spillover of the conflict or the Iranian government's collapse are both worrying outcomes for the energy-rich region, this entire region, which hosts several major US military bases. Peace and stability have been central to the rise of Gulf powers, be it Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, who are now being seen as economies which are driven by business and tourism. And in order to avert this crisis, Saudi Arabia, which is the world's biggest oil exporter, has been talking to Iran and United States since day one. On the other hand, in Europe, top UK, France, and Germany diplomats are pushing for 11th hour diplomacy with Iran in Geneva. Will it actually happen? What's going to happen in the next 24 to 48 hours? All that is going to be extremely crucial. We have a top war analyst joining us now. John Spencer is chair of urban warfare studies, and he's joining me from Colorado. Thank you so much, John, for joining us. Are we looking at a point of no return in this Israel-Iran conflict, or is there still, one would say, John, a viable back channel of diplomacy operating beneath the surface?
Well, war is always a contest of will, and it always has a political objective. So ultimately, yes, the diplomatic measures, and you would hope that the Islamic regime in Iran would have some rationale and basically agree to that diplomatic solution. But absolutely, that's still a chance for that. And that is, from all that I'm seeing, despite Israel's dominance of Iran's skies right now and what it's eliminating in Iran, that there is this massive push. And just from the President Trump perspective, I wouldn't wait for the 2-week mark. I think President Trump is waiting till he needs to or can assist, although Israel is doing a really good job on destroying Iran's nuclear program. They've killed 14 of 15 nuclear scientists. They've taken out every nuclear site except Fordo, the deeper buried one. The U.S. National Security Council is now meeting daily on the situation. So although since this operation started on the 61st day of the 60 days that President Trump gave Iran, Iran shouldn't take Trump's timelines as not serious, but I think you could still see options of the U.S. assisting to end the conflict quicker. Everybody wants a diplomatic end. And lastly, it's pretty ridiculous that Iran would say they had no part in striking a hospital. Their propaganda machine rivals that of Pakistan and what we saw in Operation Sindoor.
So how has Israel's recent military strategy effectively crossed Tehran's red lines? And what do you think Iran's likely next move will be? Will it be retaliation or restraint?
So at this moment, I don't see Iran showing any restraint, but Israel is not only hitting their over 20 senior commanders, they just eliminated the next head of the military that Iran appointed to the military. They've also taken out Iran's ability to retaliate. So they've taken out 40 to 50% of Iran's rocket launchers, because that's really the main and only way that Iran has an ability to retaliate to Israel specifically, although they could activate proxies across the Middle East and even in other countries like the United States. But right now, mainly, Iran can retaliate with ballistic missiles, but Israel is showing immense amounts of capability to target that capability before it's launched and to defend against it. There's recent strikes as of today, and Iran had zero impact of their ballistic missiles, and the United States is positioning more aircraft carriers into the region that are basically a defense. So I don't know about red lines. Israel's objective is very clear. Iran's objectives are less clear on what they're trying to achieve, other than to reach some type of position where they keep their nuclear program, which now you have the world. I mean, even the G7 conference, Iran cannot have a nuclear program.
But Donald Trump's 2-week deadline, I mean, what does that mean militarily or diplomatically? Is it bluster or a sign of some serious intent?
No, I think it's serious intent. The president has been a man of his word thus far, especially since he took office. And I know that 2-week mark has been kind of normal for him and his talking. But again, the 60 days was a real 60 days. And on the 61st day, Israel attacked. 2 weeks, you can see all the systems. It's all part of the diplomacy. It's to show readiness and willingness to help achieve the goals. And so I think the 2-week mark is a real mark, but with the National Security Council meeting daily, Israel's doing a really good job of reducing Iran's capabilities. And you would think at this point they would show rationale, just like Pakistan did after 4 days, saying, look, we don't want any more of this. But the Islamic regime is trying to battle and save face, because if it truly gives up its incomplete nuclear program, it won't exist as it does today. It's part of its center philosophy for existing is the building of a nuclear bomb to be able to do what it wants to do in the Middle East.
But John, has the Biden administration's calibrated silence on Israel's offensive in fact emboldened Netanyahu or limited his room for escalation? How do you look at it?
Well, I mean, the Trump administration has, of course, been involved in the planning and acknowledgement, because this was a global threat. There was real U.S. bases in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and others that would be under, and we saw them being evacuated before this. So clearly, the United States administration has been working hand in hand as Israel took this act by themselves out of survival. I think they're in close coordination daily, probably, to ensure that there isn't that broader spillover that you were talking about, such as the Straits of Hormuz and basically the global oil economy, things like that, that nobody wants to see. And whether the United States, and I think this is why President Trump does have room to wait right now. The United States doesn't have to, although it could speed with like hitting the Fordo site with the U.S. bomb that only the United States has, that would end the goal of rolling back the nuclear program quicker. But nobody wants to see that broader spillover and escalation. So the United States, of course, is monitoring, communicating with Israel, what they're striking and things like that on a day-to-day basis.
But then, is there a clear U.S. Israel operational understanding on Iran? Or, John, are we witnessing a case of strategic divergence?
No, absolutely not. I think you actually see for once, as the United States' foreign policy has failed in Iran to curtail its nuclear program, you actually see alignment with the United States and Israel in achieving the goal of removing this threat. I mean, Iran was also developing an intercontinental ballistic missile to be able to hit other countries, to include the shores of the United States. This is a real threat to the world. And I think you see an alignment here. Even in the past, when you saw Israel striking the Iraq nuclear site and the Syrian nuclear site, there was not alignment, although eventually there was basically agreement that it was necessary. But at the time, there was stiff even sanctions and political statements against Israel for taking it into their own hands. But in this time, I think there's strong alignment in the goal.
Okay, then what about Hezbollah and Iran's proxy networks? And what role do you think they will play if this becomes a wider war? And then can the U.S. afford another regional engagement?
Yeah, so to be clear, the United States and the world can't afford Iran with a nuclear weapon. I know it's hard to put this war in context with previous regional wars like the invasion of Iraq that I took part of, but this intelligence, I mean, the IAEA saying that for the first time in 20 years, Iran was in violation of non-nuclear proliferation and was developing nuclear components for a bomb. Yes, the proxies that Iran has spent the billions of dollars that the United States gave, or sanctions relief that the United States gave in a hope that Iran would just magically give up its program, is how it built these ring of fire around Israel, and Hezbollah being the crown jewel, which still is believed to have 40%, 50% of its medium-range missiles that could do a lot of harm in Israel. But right now, it seems that Hezbollah has been deterred by Iran in its overwhelming military operation that Israel has done against Iran, has deterred Hezbollah, but it's an absolute real threat, as well as the Shia-backed militias in Iraq. The Houthis still have some capability, and then you have a concern about like sleeper cells in everybody's countries. As of right now, it seems that either Iran's holding that capability till it views itself in dire constraint or dire need, but also that these elements have been weakened and that they're deterred. So there might be a divergence between the Ayatollahs and these even terror proxies that they have built.
And how do you look at these nuclear sites in Iran, which are being floated as legitimate military targets by Israel, and how dangerous is that rhetoric in terms of global fallout?
So this is, my personal opinion is that they weren't perceived legitimate targets. They're absolutely legitimate targets under any doctrine, from the Caroline Doctrine to Article 51 of self-defense. This was a real, clear, present danger to Israel, since the Ayatollah said it was death to Israel and then death to America. I think these are, all of those nuclear sites are the strongest legitimate targets, especially for the goal that Israel has set. Israel doesn't have the goal at this moment of regime change. If it's a byproduct, that's great for the people of Iran. But the targeting of this real threat to Israel and to other countries in the Middle East, as well as the United States, the Natanz nuclear site, Isfahan, the Fordow, the plutonium enrichment site, all very legitimate targets in this act of self-defense that Israel has done. And I think it should, I'm pretty sure that's an international norm, that this would be clear, legitimate targets. And the ripple effect across the kind of global perspective is, this is why you can't have terror regimes achieving nuclear weapons. It would lead to proliferation, because if Iran had a nuclear weapon, Saudi Arabia would want one, other countries would want one, from self-defense, from what this terror proxy, this terror regime says it wants its nuclear program. It doesn't want clean energy. It wants the ability to cause mass destruction against other countries so it can continue its global export of terrorism, much like Pakistan does.
We know the role of certain countries in the Middle East, and also about the European countries. But what about China and Russia? Where do you see these two countries in this entire conflict?
Yeah, surprisingly, everybody was looking to Russia to see what Russia would do. And although Iran and Russia signed a security agreement in 2024, Iran has been helping Russia in its campaign in Ukraine. It wasn't a mutual defense agreement. So when Iran called Russia, Russia said, "You're on your own." Vladimir Putin even talked to President Trump about helping to mediate a end of basically the operation, and President Trump told him, "How about you worry about mediating and ending the war in Ukraine?" Now, China is also a different car, without as strong relationship. There was some reporting that China was sending military supplies. I'm not sure if that was true or not. Hopefully that's not true, and there should be kind of a global conversation about, this is about a very limited objective, and nobody should be helping Iran continue a nuclear program at this moment, and that there should be this. I agree that there's many European countries in Geneva right now, and they talked about Oman getting back to the table. This is Iran's chance to actually negotiate in good faith, which it wasn't doing before.
Couple of questions, and I want to understand, President Donald Trump saw himself as a peacemaker, and he was hoping that he would have stopped the Russia-Ukraine war. That was not to be. And if now he has set that 14-day deadline, 2 weeks to be specific, according to the White House, how, does it really weaken the role of United States? It's appearing to be almost a country which is going to be triggering it, making it worse, perhaps escalating it rather than de-escalation?
No, I think the opposite is actually actualizing the peace through strength motto that President Trump came into, was elected for. While America first doesn't mean isolationism or disengaging from the global economy, it's actually the opposite. You saw President Trump in the Middle East recently with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the Emirates signing $600 billion trade deals with the Sunni kind of the people who aren't trying to destroy their neighbors. And that's a positive. And I think this, although the Russia-Ukraine war is an illegal throwing out the international norms, actually keeps peace, like sovereign borders that we kind of should all agree on is a thing that should be upheld. And the operations that Russia is doing in Ukraine, it's awful. But in this case, no, I think this is showing actually what peace through strength looks like. And it isn't starting a forever war, it's ending a forever war in Islamic regimes, global terror proxies. I had soldiers die in Iraq from Quds Force, IRGC in Iraq attacking American forces. No, I think this is showing, and even without being involved at this point, political leadership, much like Prime Minister Modi did with Pakistan, saying, look, we're not going to do the nuclear blackmail thing, the two-sided face of terrorism, say you're helping against it and then deploying terrorists into everybody's countries, in this case, especially India's. No, I think this is like Prime Minister Modi's strategic leadership during Sindor. This is showing President Trump's leadership in a conflict that other people were kicking down the road in a specific area. This isn't about a quagmire of trying to build another nation or what comes after the regime. This is about removing an imminent threat to Israel and to the United States and other countries.
John, really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us and sharing your thoughts. Shifting focus now, ladies and gentlemen, and for that, I'll try and get more details on this conflict, which is only intensifying. Remember, the tremors are being felt far beyond the Middle East, including right here in our country, India. For a country that imports nearly 85% of its crude oil, any escalation threatens to disrupt supply lines and spike global prices, directly hitting our economy and inflation. But it's not just about oil. India has deep strategic ties with both Israel and Iran, and one a key defense partner, the other a vital route to Central Asia through the Chabar port. With West Asia on the edge, New Delhi finds itself in a very, very delicate diplomatic dance, balancing energy security, regional stability, and long-term strategic interests. So how prepared is India for the fallout of a possible regional war, and what are the big takeaways for our foreign and economic policy? Let me give you some more statistics here. Over 8 million Indians live and work across the Gulf, in UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, and Iran. Any regional flare-up could risk their safety, affect employment, and delay remittances as well. And if there is going to be a prolonged conflict, it doesn't help anyone. Joining me now to break this down further and get more details on and get perspective, I would say, on what now in this entire conflict is Adam Scott. He's joining me from Tel Aviv. He's the CEO of Israel Innovation Fund. We have Mohammad Khatibi. He's an Iran analyst and a broadcast journalist joining me from Tehran. Ashok Sajanhar is a former diplomat. Adam, I'm going to begin with you. Is Israel's current military posture aimed at deterrence, or does it signal an intent to dismantle Iran's regional influence entirely?
So I think it's very, first of all, thank you for having me. I think it's very clear that not only are we trying to dismantle the regional influence, but we're trying to dismantle the regime itself. And I think that's extremely important to understand. There is no war between Israel and the Iranian people. This is strictly between the Islamic Republic, their regime, and their threats against not only the Western world, but also Israel. So I think it should be very clear that the Israeli goal is one thing: regime change and the freedom for the Iranian people and the restabilization of the Middle East.
From Tehran's side, is this about retaliation or about shaping a long-term resistance narrative here? Would you take that question, Khatibi?
Yeah, I mean, oh, was that to me?
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's for the other panelist. Yes.
The other guest from Israel is saying that Israel is the most moral army in the world and is trying to give freedom to Iranians.
Well, we're certainly not the world's largest sponsor of terror. I can say that right now.
What you have done in occupied Palestine, we have done.
Right, occupied Palestine, except for the fact that it's our land and that we've been an indigenous people for 3,500 years.
And you are continuing to bomb Syria. You are continuing to bomb
I'm going to leave the program if I have to listen to this. I'm not going to lie.
One moment.
I'm sorry.
Moment.
I'm not gonna listen to this type of propaganda, and I'm not gonna listen to this type of. I'm not gonna listen.
Propaganda.
I am not going to
just-
listen to a representative of the Islamic Republic
One moment.
call my land occupied or a colonizer, especially when this is a regime that is the world's largest sponsor of terror. You want entertainment? That's fine, but I will not dignify any person like this speaking this way about my case. Sir, listen, your country is burning. I'm sorry that your country is burning. I'm sorry that you're losing a war. I'm sorry that every single proxy has been destroyed. I'm sorry that Hezbollah is gone. I'm sorry that Hamas is gone. I'm sorry that the Houthis are losing. And I'm sorry that only 10% of your rockets are getting through. And if you look at the population or the strategic placement of our bombs versus yours, okay, listen, I understand that you have to be an apologist for an Islamic regime. Okay, listen, you're not going to be able to talk over me just like you weren't able to win a war.
Doesn't help.
So I'm so sorry. No, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm not
Mr.
going to listen to
Khatibi
this.
and Adam, you will have to be patient with each other. You may not agree, but on NDTV,
May not agree.
we get all the voices, and it's an Israel versus Iran conflict, and hence Iranian representative will be on the channel as part of this discussion, Adam, so you will have to be patient while he makes his point, just as he was when you were speaking. So, okay, Mr. Khatibi, 30 seconds, then we move on.
Yes, he is trying to say that Iran is being attacked because it has nuclear weapons. Netanyahu has been saying this for almost 20 years, and he is saying that now, and now he is talking about Iran wanting to assassinate Trump, and these are things that Israel is doing.
I said nothing about Iran assassinating Donald
US
Trump.
feet in the region.
I didn't say that at all.
Kill more people, as it killed many Palestinians, and it killed many Lebanese people on false charges, and it is the expansionist idea of Israel.
Okay, so we'll have to move on. We'll have to move on and try.
I'm gonna say this right now. I'm sorry.
Adam,
if you want to put me on with a panelist that is a legitimate panelist who wants to articulate the Islamic Republic's, point of view, that's fine. But this is not a legitimate panelist. And the things that he's saying are absolutely ridiculous and are a waste of my time to even acknowledge.
No, but why do you say that he is not legitimate? He is.
You know why?
He's joining us from Tehran, and he's also an analyst. I mean, on what basis are you saying that he's not legitimate?
I'm going to tell you why he's not a legitimate panelist, because I did not say anything about Donald Trump, and he just said that I said something about Donald Trump. And you know what? We have been saying that we would attack you for 20 years if you came close to a nuclear bomb. You financed proxies that have attacked us. You financed Hamas that attacked us. Okay, this isn't coming from nowhere. The Islamic Republic is the world's largest sponsor of terrorism. You've killed Jews and Israelis all over the world. That's fine. You can shake your head. There are videos of your people,
who is now killing Gazans?
People,
just tell me, who has killed 50,000 people, innocent women and children? Who has killed?
Listen, I'm not going to deal this.
Tell me this.
Now,
who has killed 50,000 people?
You'll have to listen to him.
Speaking.
You'll have to listen to him. Yes.
I am speaking right now. And I will not be interrupted by a representative of the Islamic Republic. I'm sorry. There are videos of your people dancing and celebrating in the streets because we are taking down your regime.
These are not our people. Our people want retaliation. We are a nation that defends itself, and we will continue to do so. And you are attacking our sovereign territory, and you are defending it. And you will know.
Are you telling me? Are you telling me that you haven't attacked our sovereignty? You've done nothing wrong. You never fired rockets in
we didn't start this.
I know.
You were.
You've never
Who
done
attacked our
anything.
nuclear facilities?
The Islamic
Who attacked
Republic
our
of
military
Iran
sites?
has never
Who
done
targeted
anything.
residential
That's
areas and civilian
absolutely.
areas?
You want to know something? That's absolutely fascinating that you would say that. Yeah, that's absolutely that you would say something. It's the Jews. It's the Jews that are disrupting the world. It's the Jews that are taking over.
Have any problem with the Jews. We don't have any problem with the Jews.
Where does Saudi Arabia stand? No, I want to understand. No, both of you, please be silent now. Adam and Khatibi, you'll have to be silent. Ashok Sajjanar. No, he has to be brought in now because.
Step into your future with learning that can take you anywhere.
This part is really important on the side.
All by yourself. Listening to everybody say, be everybody else. Can't you see?
Thank you, Your Honor. The case is very, very simple.
Ain't nobody just
The Open University. The future is open.
So I've just got Sun Life's guaranteed over 50 plan. Super easy, no medical questions. I finally have the confidence to devote myself to my craft.
Woodwork?
I even made this.
Really?
With Sun Life, there's a guaranteed cash payout. But this is one less thing you'll have to spend it on.
Search Sun Life Plan today and get a free gift card.
Sun's out, fun's out. At Tesco Mobile, our deals will help you get the most out of summer. Get a SIM with 100 gigs of data for just £16 a month with Club Card prices. And what's more, we'll help you save on your summer activities by collecting £20 worth of Club Card points too. How you choose to spend them is up to you. It pays to be connected. Search Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Life's full of times like this. Oh yeah. The gaps between the good stuff. Okay. Like killing time in waiting rooms. It's not long until you've had enough. David, it's time for some tombola. Working on that flat pack. Open for fun. Been bulking up the six-pack. Open for fun. Yes! I've won £11! All right, calm down. It's just a bit of bingo. Open for fun.
Kelsey and Reese could part exchange their car. Or check out We Buy Any Car. They could be confused if they got a good deal part exchanging. Or have cash in the bank with more bargaining power to get their dream camper van. Bad vibes or good vibes only. To get a quote in 30 seconds, enter your reg number now at WeBuyAnyCar.com.
If you won't do it for you, do it for your dog, who's upset you didn't hear his whining.
Book a free hearing test at bootshearingcare.com.
If your garage looks like this, you need Tougher Man. A leading supplier of shelving for your home or business. Assembly is quick, easy and boltless. Buy one bay from just $59.99, or you can get 3 bays from only $119.99. Saving you nearly £60. Plus, you get a 5-year Storelex steel guarantee. Order now at tougherman.co.uk.
I bought cars on finance, so I've made my claim.
If our lenders charge hidden commissions, then I've made my claim.
I could be on thousands.
I've made my claim.
I've made my claim.
I've made my claim.
I've made my claim. It's so quick and simple.
You could be owed thousands in hidden commissions from vehicles bought on finance since 2007, even without the details.
I've made my claim.
Trust myclaimgroup.co.uk.
Claims made simple.
You are trying to sell the world that we are the moral army of the world. This is not true. And we have seen that in Gaza Strip. We have seen that in Syria, Lebanon, wherever you are, wherever your boss, U.S. is, you are saying that we are trying to give freedom to that country. You didn't bring freedom to Iraq. Your boss didn't bring freedom to Iraq. It's just misery. We don't let you to do that.
Am I going to be allowed to say anything?
Yeah.
Let him finish. Yeah. So
Okay.
you've made your point, Pradeep. Come in. Adam.
You're finished. Okay. First of all, I don't know what we have to do with Iraq. We had nothing to do with that. That was the Americans too. Could you just do me a favor and define occupied Palestine for me? What areas that are? Because you said you're firing rockets at occupied Palestine. Now, from the most left wing of terminology, that would be the West Bank and Gaza, except you've hit Arab homes in the West Bank. So I'm just wondering, when you say occupied Palestine and you're shooting in Tel Aviv and Beersheba, are you referring to Tel Aviv and Beersheba as occupied Palestine?
Yeah. The whole
right.
occupied Palestine.
Right. Okay.
There is nothing called Israel.
Okay, excuse me. I have one question.
There is nothing called Israel.
Right. Okay. So there's nothing called Israel. Okay. So now I know that we're dealing with a guest not living in reality.
You try to annex now.
Sir, shut up.
You have control over whatever you have.
Myself. Do you understand? I'm going to bend you over and smack you the way that our army is already destroying your country. So
okay,
either you be
Adam,
quiet.
Adam, we have to be careful with the language. We have to be very, very careful with the language. This is a discussion on a television channel. You are really going overboard. You're going very, very overboard.
My country doesn't exist. Okay, well, my country doesn't exist, apparently, and it's okay to attack our civilian infrastructure, and it's okay to attack. It's okay
no
to attack
one is
hospitals.
attacking your civilian infrastructure. You better know that you are trying to occupy the whole West Bank and you are growing settlements there.
Okay, right, excuse me. No. In Tel Aviv, my friend's apartment has been destroyed. She is now homeless because you hit a rocket directly on her apartment building.
You destroyed 30 kilometers, 30.
No, we're not talking about that.
Of land. You have destroyed every building in Gaza.
Okay, Adam Scott, respond to my question now, and please, Mr. Khatibi, be silent.
I won't get that.
I'm sorry,
patient.
but like I'm a serious, I'm a serious
Adam
journalist,
Scott, I want to,
and I'm a serious commentator,
Adam,
and I will not participate in these games just for your entertainment.
Adam, what is going to be the role of the United States?
The role of the United States will probably be whatever it has to be in order for there to be stability in the region, which is not something that will exist if the Islamic Republic continues to stand, as not only Syria feels, but Saudi Arabia feels, and also Lebanon feels, and so does Jordan. Because nobody likes playing with the Islamic Republic because they're the people that come into the sandbox and step on everybody's sandcastles. Now, if you want to have serious commentary and have a serious discussion, I'll be more than happy to do so. But it's extremely hard to do that with somebody that says they're not hitting civilian targets
can make your serious
when they're
observation.
bombing.
You can make your
I can't make a serious observation
because
when I see
asked
this
a question. You can respond to me.
like
Forget about what's being said by Mr. Khatibi here. You respond to my question.
That's fine. I responded to you. I told you.
So U.S. President has given a 2-week deadline.
The Americans will probably do what is ever necessary in order to destabilize the Iranian regime and have them replaced. Mark my words, by the end of the month, the Islamic Republic will no longer be standing.
Mr. Khatibi, quickly.
So, without
the role of the
United
help, States,
you wouldn't have dared to.
Who do you think can play
without the U.S. help, Israel wouldn't have dared to attack us.
And it's the U.S.
and Israel is the proxy of the U.S. in the region.
Can make that effort to de-escalate this, given the nature of escalation that we are seeing? It's already 8 days.
We were on the negotiating table, and Israel blew that table off. And now, no negotiation can happen until Israel stops acting like this. Israeli aggression on Iran must stop, and the whole world should condemn Israeli acts of aggression against Iran. The United Nations Security Council should condemn Israel, and the IAEA, Proxy, which is trying to be neutral, and we all know that he is a spy, Israeli spy, trying to condemn Iran for what it hasn't done. The IAEA should condemn Israel for attacking civilian nuclear facilities. No one was in Iran was
civilian nuclear facilities.
And Israel has been saying that Iran was days away from building a nuclear bomb for more than 20 years. And this should stop. We were on the negotiating table, but now we are defending our sovereign territory. We are a dignified nation.
All right,
we have dignity.
Khatibi, Adam Scott and Ashok Sajjan, I really appreciate your time. Shifting focus now to another story. A 30,000-pound bunker buster bomb may be the key to Israel's plan to eliminate Iran's Fordo nuclear site, but only the U.S. has it. As tensions rise in West Asia, will America greenlight a mission that's never been done before? Parmeshwar Baba breaks down all the details.
It's 30,000 pounds of pure power. Nicknamed the Bunker Buster, the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator is the most powerful non-nuclear bomb on Earth. And right now, it may be Israel's only hope of hitting what it calls the heart of Iran's nuclear program. I'll tell you why it matters. Iran's Fordo nuclear facility, buried deep inside a mountain, is practically impenetrable. Israel's own bombs can't touch it, But the US mob, well, it was explicitly engineered to destroy deep underground weapon bunkers exactly like Fordo. So why hasn't it been used? Because the massive ordnance penetrator doesn't sit in Israeli hangars. It's American-only tech deployed by the stealth B-2 Spirit bomber, a weapon platform that only the US controls. Israeli officials say the elimination of Fordo is non-negotiable, but dropping this bomb in a real war has never been done before. And according to US military experts, it would take not one, but two of these dropped in the exact same spot to do the job. So is America willing? Well, Trump says Iran still wants talks, but also warns it's getting very late. And if talks collapse, he says a strike could be on the table. The US military, in fact, silent in public but ready to execute if ordered. So one American bomb, one Iranian nuclear site, and one Israeli red line that could drag the United States into full-blown war. The real story isn't just this bomb, it's who pulls the trigger and what happens next.
Ladies and gentlemen, Britain hasn't been so great of late because the country hasn't been eating enough Weetabix.
Makes sense. I've been eating croissants.
To whoever's in charge of fixing potholes, VAR, and drivers who park like this, we must say, have you had your Weetabix?
Hello, Mary.
Hello, Derek.
Special buys Thursday.
What makes you say that?
Aldi Special Buys. New amazing items every Thursday and Sunday. Who knows what's in store?
Protect your